Greetings in Jesus' wonderful name and welcome to Riverside Chats. I'm preaching on faith. It is a very small series on faith from Hebrews 11. I'm just going to focus on three characters. We looked at Abel, we looked at Cain. Now we are looking at Enoch, or Enoch, as some people say. Now you might say, well, why do you say Enoch? I guess I've been living in the United States for over 30 years now. I live longer here than in South Africa. There's some things that never change, but some pronunciations change over a long period of time. Enoch or Enoch walked with God. What does it mean to walk with God? To walk with God is to consistently follow God, not to backslide in any major way. We are not perfect. But I thank God that I followed him all the days of my life. I must say that I followed the devil in some ways, with strongholds that I have not gained mastery over. You might say, Pastor, do you have strongholds you have not gained mastery over? Oh, some we gain mastery over, but it seems to come back sporadically. But we put that under the blood. We fight. That's what Paul meant. I've fought the good fight. I've kept the faith. I've finished the course. I tell people, as long as you fight, you're winning. God has called us to a fight. And a good fight is a fight that you win. Here was Enoch. He walked with God all the days of his life. Like Enoch, we are looking for some purpose in life. We are looking for satisfaction. We are looking for meaning and identity. There's only purpose in God. In the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3 and verse 11, the Bible says, God has put eternity inside every human heart. God has put eternity inside every human heart. Now, God gave us some lovely children. We have 4. You might say, Pastor Charles, you have a big family for these days. But that's because I've had 2 marriages. One marriage ended when I was 27. My oldest son is 42 years old. My oldest grandsons, 2 of them, are freshmen in high school. They are 15 years old. I started life pretty early. And then my second marriage. I had married when I was around 28, 29. God is a good God. I have 2 children from the first marriage. We have 2 children from the second marriage. So we have 4. But just to understand, when every child came into being, at conception, there was an eternal being coming into focus that will never, ever, ever die again. In our children are our DNA. We have a spark of eternity in us. We are co-producers and co-creators in the divine process when it comes to children. It's amazing how as people get older, they look more like their parents. Some favor their fathers, some favor their mothers. People say I look a lot like my mother. I guess it depends on the genetics. But yet I see my brother, we looked pretty much alike. As we were growing up, I could see the resemblance. But of a few years gone by, I could see my father in him. His mannerisms, the way he sits, his posture. I see my Father in him. We reflect our parents. Their DNA is in us. And I love every one of my children. I love them equally because we need to love them uniquely. Everyone does not respond the same to you. Don't show favoritism to your children. Love them equally. If one is treating you better, privatize those things. Don't mention it to him. Don't make comparisons. It's terrible on a child's psyche to know that you prefer someone else to them. I know my siblings, sometimes they think my mother loves me more, but I've been out of the house since I was 18. They had the privilege of being with my parents all of these years. I only see them once a year when I come to South Africa. And who knows now, God willing, I'll come twice a year to visit. God is an awesome God. He is a wonderful God. But I know my mom loves us all equally. She loves us uniquely. Some kid will talk more to the parent than the others. But that does not mean the other kid doesn't love him. Some will give more attention to the other one than the other one. But that does not mean that that one loves the one more. We love each other uniquely and differently. There's no competition. I'm glad there's no competition with me and my siblings. We all love our parents. We are not in some kind of contest. God has placed us in a family, and we thank God for that. He's placed us in the universe to fit in. French philosopher once said, "In the heart of every man is a God-shaped vacuum. If we didn't fill it with God, we will fill it with something else." Is your God-shaped vacuum filled with God? Augustine said, "O Lord, you have made us for yourself. Our hearts are restless until they find rest in you." You only find rest in Jesus as you lean on him, leaning on the everlasting arms. What a fellowship, what a joy is mine, leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessedness, what a peace divine, leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, I'm leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning, I'm leaning on the everlasting arms. Enoch found God and walked with him. He began walking after his son Methuselah was born. You know, the Bible does not say much about Methuselah, as mentioned earlier. It doesn't say as a boy of 300 years he hunted deer. I think Methuselah was the oldest man I know that ever lived. He lived for 969 years. A long time. All the Bible says about him is, and he died. But of Enoch, it says, Enoch walked with God, and he was not. He continued to walk with God beyond space and time into eternity. He continued to walk with God beyond space and time into eternity. When we walk with Jesus, we walk with him all the way. We'll never stop walking with him. You know, Enoch entered eternity without dying. He was one of two people that never died. One was Elijah, the great representation of the prophets, and the other was Enoch. Death for the believer is not a traumatic event. Death can be the sweetest and the most wonderful experience. The faith that carried me all through this life will carry me as I transition from this life into another. There's nothing scary about death. Oh, I wonder how I die. The act of death is scary, knowing how you're going to die. But how can I be sad and how can I be frightened if my father owns the real estates or own the real estate and the land on both sides of the river? Death for the believer is therefore not a traumatic event. There's a land that is fairer than day, and by faith we can see it afar, for the Father waits over the way to prepare us a dwelling place there. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. For the believer, death is a transaction or transition from this life to the next. O death, where is your sting? O grave, where is your victory? The sting of death is sin. Death is the doorway into which we enter the presence of Jesus. I shared with you in these sessions about Enoch, or Enoch, a man who walked with God. Walk with God all the days of your life. For if you walk with God all the days of your life, you will continue to walk with Him through all eternity. What a privilege to walk with God. Your walking with God is an example for the believers to follow. And out of Enoch's line comes Noah. And Noah found grace in the eyes of God. And Noah was used to repropagate the earth with humans after the great flood. Your descendants will walk with God if you walk with God. Walk with Him all the days of your life and walk with Him throughout eternity. Love ya.